welcome back. My name's Nick. Now, I've been turning for about 6 months now, and one of the tools that I have struggled with, and from what I understand, quite a few woodturners struggle with this tool, and that's the skew chisel. And I've just found something that makes life a lot easier. Now, understanding all of the basics about the skew chisel is fundamental to your progression moving forward, but there's some other little tips and tricks that I haven't really seen on YouTube to help you progress forward and make using the skew chisel a little bit easier. So hopefully this video will give you some of these little hints, because I'm no expert. I've only just been doing it for 6 months, but since doing this to my skew chisel, it's changed the world, and I'm now beginning to have a little bit more confidence in using the skew chisel on my work. Let's have a look, shall we? So before we get to the skew chisel, one of the items that used to hinder me, which I didn't realise, but I do now after having a really good look at it, is your tool rest. Now, what I found was that over the 6 months that I've been turning, there's been little nicks in here. Now, when you're using bowl gouges, spindle gouges, roughing gouges, things like that, they all have a shape that just rides over this. So if there's any sort of damage to your tool rest, it doesn't matter. With the skew chisel, especially the type that I have, this is a Chinese make chisel. It's really cheap, because obviously I'm just starting, so you don't go out and buy the best. Well, I can't afford to anyway. So, and these have got really sharp edges. So if you have a little divot or scratch in here, and it catches, and when you're using the chisel, you're resting it on the tool rest and you're applying pressure down, it catches into these, and then you suddenly either jolt across, or it rotates the skew chisel, and you get a catch. And that's all I was ever doing. It was getting catch after catch after catch. And I could see why they're a feared tool for beginners. Now, so to get over just this stage with the tool rest, was that I was just going to file down, which I've already done with this one, the top. Now I always start from the tip to tip and just keep going all the way along until you get rid of all these little blemishes in the tool rest. What you don't want to do is have any little concave areas that are going to cause problems in the future. Then once you've done that, nice bit of emery paper, and just smooth off the rest of it. Dirty work, as you can see, and I've been doing it here, and that changes the tool rest to work in my favour. So there was one problem that I had. The next problem, as I've already said, was that this is a standard sort of skew chisel that you can get. They come square and they've got sharp edges. To stop them from catching, even on something that's smooth, is to take the edge off the skew chisel. Now, I've already done it with my inch, and that I can run my finger across that. I won't cut myself. With the other one, I definitely can. And now that, listen to, so much better. So much better. Now, I know that you can get many different types of skew chisel, but when you're starting, we start with this, unless you got money. we start with something like this, and this is what we're learning with, and this is the problem. So I've not found a video yet that explains about the tool rest. I have seen a video about the tool rest, about it being clean, but I've not seen one about taking the edges off of your skew chisel. So different types are, you can get oval types, you can get round ones. I'll put some pictures up in the right hand corner to show you the different styles that they have, and that's that. So all I've done is, with my little file, is just taken the edge off of these corners, and then with the emery paper again just smoothed it off so it's nice and smooth. And now I tell you what, you will not believe the difference when you start using it, about how smooth it will be. It's good. So there's one pointer, the edges and your tool rest. Let's have a look at the rest. So I'm just going to take a seat. So these are my two skew chisels. I've got 1.5 inch and 1/2 inch. I've already prepared my inch skew chisel, and the changes I've made to it have been absolutely amazing in the performance of me using it. It's just unreal, which is why I wanted to do this video. Just these little changes made the difference. So let's first have a look at the anatomy of the skew chisel. So obviously on here, the very tip here, this is the cutting edge. This area from the cutting edge to here, just the beginning of the shank, this is the beveled edge on both sides. And then we have the shank. We have the pointy part, which is the toe. And we have the lower part, which is the heel. This, where the heel is, this is the heel edge. And this is the toe edge. Okay? So that's the basic anatomy of the skew chisel. Now we need to have a look at the angles that we are going to require for the skew chisel to work in your favour rather than against you. I think most people already know this anyway. So we have this angle here. This angle here is a 20 to 30 degree skew angle. You can have straight ones, 90 degree. But this one, 20 to 30. And on the bevel angle is anything between 25 and 45 degree angle on the bevel end. But what has been the game changer for me was that the bevel length, which is from here to here, the bevel, that length has to be 1.5 the thickness of the skew chisel. So mine is 4. Let's reset that. So you've got this one at about 4 there, 4.3. So 1.5 of that, and then we got a 6. There we go. So it's around about 1.5 the thickness of the skew chisel. That's what I've grinded this to, and it works amazingly for me and has made the difference. Like I said, I've already done this one. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you me adjusting this one to suit what I have done with my inch skew. So to start off, let's have a look at the grinding wheel. So as you can see, I've got a line across here, and what I did was that I got the square, it's not an exact science, but I put it on the edge of here and I made that line, and you'll see what that's for in a minute. Also, you'll see that I have very faint lines on here, and that's to help me keep the skew chisel at the right angle. So this angle I've already set, that comes down to here, and I make sure that that is in line with the angle on the grinder, and I got to try and keep that in line as I go across. Now the way I've done that is by drawing lines on here, and that helps me keep that in line as I go across. So as I'm coming across nice and slowly, nice and gently, I can see that as I hit each mark that I'm somewhere near the mark that I need to be to keep that perfectly straight, and that angle, as you can see, it's smaller there than it is at the top because I obviously went in at a wrong angle, and that could be part of one of the problems that we're having with the skew chisel itself. So let's start by sharpening this one. So the first thing first is get a permanent marker, strike off the sharpening edge. Now because we're going to be making this bevel different, I'm going to strike off down here as well. I'm going to do it both sides. Like so. Next, I'm going to set this for 6 because that is 4. There we go. So I'm going to set that for 6. Just roughly, it doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm going to run the tip of that across the edge there. And now you can see how far out that is, and also how much more I've got to grind off. So do that both sides. Without the marker being on there, I wouldn't see that mark on there. So that's ready to grind. First things first, face shield on. Just bring that round. Alright, shed a bit of light onto it. And here we go. What we don't want to do is get it too hot. We don't want no bluing. Just very gently. A little bit at a time. So these angles here will keep the top square to the sharpening stone. To the other. bring it back. Just remember, no pressure. We're getting there. You can see how far the chisel was out. It was out quite a bit. Tip there, look. Nice and gentle. Take your time. And start bringing that edge back. To make sure that these are exact both sides. There we go. Let's move on to the next part of the sharpening, because that's not it. So although it is quite sharp, there's another stage that I can use on the oil stone that will bring this to an ultimate sharpness. So we've sharpened the tool on the grinder, on the grinding wheel. So the next stage, now this is my preference and this is how I like sharpening my chisels. Now when I first left school, I used to work in a carpentry shop and I spent hours sharpening all the chisels right at the beginning. So I quite like that technique. So here we go. So once you've used the grinder wheel, you'll find that there's a little dip in the center here. You'll see in a minute. And here. It's not really that visible on the camera. But once I start sharpening it on the stone, you'll see that in this area here, in the center, where I sharpen it, it will not get touched. It will sharpen the tip and clean the back edge, but not the center part. And this is what I want to get rid of, some of it, not all of it, just some of it. So the way I do this, and the way I've always been shown to do this, to lay it flat on the stone, bring the back edge of the handle up. Now keeping your handle here, your finger on there, and keep the back of the handle on your arm. So you're moving like so. Okay, and you're only moving from your shoulder and no other points, no other point of movement, just your shoulder. So lay it flat, bring the edge up until this is sitting flat, and then slowly but surely, nice and slowly, I've already oiled this stone. I do like my oil stones. And just, you don't need to rush this. We don't need to go at hyper speed. Now you can see just a little bit of dust that appears on the edge there. Okay, and you can see already hitting the back edge, it's already taken the front edge as well. So here we go. Okay, you can see that slight dust on the front of the chisel coming up. That's just where the angle of the chisel is at the perfect angle, and it's not digging in. You can't see it digging in. It's just taking, you'll probably feel it, and it's just mainly oil and very fine dust. You can see this already, look. Back edge, front edge, the middle not so. And that's what the grinder wheel does. How much of a difference it makes to you using it as a skew chisel, I'm not really sure, but it certainly has helped me sharpen this chisel. So I won't bore you with this. I'll just continue to do both sides and I'll be back. So I've sharpened both sides. You can see it's just these this bit through the centre that's not been got. But I can tell you now that that's really sharp. But we do have a micro burr on the edge here. And we get rid of that just by drawing back. Place it up, make sure it's nice, and just draw back. Turn it over, place it flat, get the bevel right, and draw it back. And that will get rid of the micro burr across the edge of that. So that is now really, there's a little bit more there actually. There, ooh. Is really sharp. It's not a bit of paper, didn't have a piece, but look how sharp that is. That's, I don't want to blunten it too much on the piece guard, I'll have to do it again, but look how sharp that is. Okay, obviously if it was a knife it'd have a different angle on that. So from now on, after this process, I should really only need to use my oil stone to sharpen my skew chisel. Next, let's take these edges off. So all I'm using for this is a small file, just a very small file that I have, extremely handy. And literally just take the edge off. You don't need to work hard at it, but you do need to work the full length so it's equal the full length of the skew chisel. Okay, both sides. And here, it really doesn't take much just to take that sharp edge off. So if you've got one of these cheap Chinese skew chisels or sets, which is what I had when I got my lathe, maybe you should do this and see the changes yourself. You won't believe it. Bit of emery paper. just smooth it off. Be careful not to go over the tip. Take that edge of the toe off. It won't be. You'd have to start sharpening all over again. So now that has no edge on it. I could go further and take it right off, but I'm not going to. And turn it over and do it to the other side as well. I'll be back in a minute.
Nice and smooth. Not something I used to be able to do. On speaker. Tidy this piece up here. This is just a scrap piece of pine. You need really sharp tools for softwoods. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have an attempt at just rounding it off. That's the centre.
I don't think that was too bad, do you? All because of the way the chisel was set up. I could not do that at all before I changed my Skew chisel. Well, I hope that helps everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.